welcome you into space. And so this is part of a series of poetry readings, films, and dialogue as part of the exhibition Bodies and Borders, Ecologies of Consent, in partnership with Women's Eco Art Dialogue and the 109 Gallery. And today we have the amazing, I really admire Petra. I've studied you in grad school, so just
Oh,
like a
wow.
small fangirl moment there. But you're one of the artists that really spoke to my own practice. And so yeah, we're hosting today in the historic downtown of Chickamauga, Georgia, on the unceded lands of the Cherokee. Um, so just giving acknowledgement and a moment there for that. I welcome everyone who is attending virtually to share where you are and share your own acknowledgements. So this is part of an ongoing series. It brings artists and poets and thinkers together whose works explore the boundaries and interconnections between bodies, ecologies, and care across both human and more than human worlds. So tonight we're honored to share space with Petra Kuppers, a celebrated disability culture activist. Through her practice, Petra invites us into embodied conversation with the earth, one rooted in listening, interdependence, and imagination. Her work moves fluidly between performance, film, and writing, often asking how we can live more tenderly with one another and with the environments that sustain us. She has been engaged in community dance and disability culture production since the late 80s, first in her native Germany, then in Wales, the UK, New Zealand, I believe, too, and
That's right.
since 2001 in the US. This is also my first time encountering your work, Petra, was through this project that you house space for.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, I'm gonna turn it over to Mary. This evening flow, though, is we're sharing space physically and also virtually together. Petra will share her practice in poetry. We'll leave space at the end for reflection, Q&A. And then we'll close out the space physically where we will end the evening also having dialogue and sharing our own poetry or thoughts, and watching her performance video again in this space. So thank you. I'm going to turn it over to Mary.
Hi. Well, first, my name's Mary. I'm the WEAD Women Eco's Dialogue Chair. And I want to thank Leah and her gallery for putting this on. This is really an amazing collaboration. We're so excited. Our collaborative organization was founded in 1996, and it's a volunteer-run cohort of female-identified visual artists, writers, curators, art historians, researchers, scientists, and others interested in the highlighting the intersection of art and ecological issues. So I'll read the land acknowledgement from Berkeley, California, which is where our office is. We are seated on the ancestral and unceded land of the Chochenyo-speaking Ohlone, and the successors of the sovereign Verona tribe of Alameda County, near one of the largest shell mounds in the Bay Area. The land was and continues to be of great importance to the Muwakmi Ohlone tribe and other familiar descendants of the Verona band. And we recognize the Muwakmi Ohlone tribe, who are campaigning to become federally recognized, the Association of Ramaytush Ohlone, who are researching, revitalizing, and preserving Ramaytush Ohlone history and culture, and the Confederated Villages of Lejeune and the Sogorea Land Trust, who are working to return native land back to Indigenous stewardship. As Leah said, please put your own land acknowledgements in the chat. A little Zoom housekeeping. We're recording this presentation, and please keep your audio muted during the presentation, and we may need to mute you if there is extra noise. If you have questions during the presentation, please put them in the chat, and we'll have a question and talking and dialogue section afterwards. We'll stop. So we'll just be doing this for about an hour. So Leah, would you like to go back to finish introducing Petra?
Um, yes, so I'm gonna let Petra speak for herself from here and share your poetry and your practice with us. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for everybody that's shown up to support this conversation.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much. I'm just so delighted to be here. It's just lovely. So thanks for having me. I love that this is a community gathering space. I love it's hybrid. So hi, Georgia. So nice to be here with you. I can't see you all, but I'm so glad you're there. I love that you're gathering in the name of art. You know, that is just the best thing. Gathering in the name of art. Hello. I see some really, really old friends and comrades online. I'm so delighted to see you. Hi, Ruth. Hi. It's been a long time. It's so nice to be here. And I always love in the company of the WEAD women. You are just such a wonderful bunch of people. So thank you so much for having me. Thank you, Leah, for all the work that you put into this, putting this amazing exhibit together. So it's great. I'm just always amazed at the way that you all are creating community. So thank you for that. So I come to you today from Abenaki territory, and it's you'll see. I'm going to share with you where I'm at right now because I'm at the MacDowell colony. So I'm at this wonderful artist residency that some of you might be familiar with. I think it's the oldest residency in the U.S. And I'm just being cared for in the kindest ways. So I'm living right now an artist's dream of being. Um, yeah, of being, oh, sorry, Leah, was this to me? Yes, you can do whatever you want. Yes, I'm living it right now, an artist's dream of just being beautifully supported. I have a wonderful little residency cottage here, and I'm working in that. And I'm going to share with you, of course, the film that is in the exhibit. So you're going to see that. It's a very short 3-minute movie. I have 2 other movies I brought along. I will start with a poem in a minute. And I also brought along the work I'm doing here right now at MacDowell because I am, you've heard I'm a disability culture artist. I also work site specific. So projects come to me as I'm coming to space, right? I mean, the world calls to me. In order to get going, I have a little invitation to you, and you might have this nearby or you might not. So many of us artists gather rocks. Do I imagine that people in front of me, at least those of you on Zoom, might have a rock somewhere lying around in your space? If so, gather one of your rocks, get one of your favorite rocks. And if you don't have a rock handy, don't even worry about it. Then just think about a favorite rock of yours. And the favorite rock of yours might be just a boulder that you lie on, maybe in Central Park, maybe an old rock from People's Park in Berkeley, which I remember well. Yes, I bet, Karina, someone just writing that, yes, they have a rock. Of course, many people have rocks. I certainly have lots of rocks about my place. Um, let's just check in with one of these rocks. So that's going to be one of the topics of my presentation today. Bones, rocks, drifting with the world, drifting with the natural world. But as soon as you got that rock handy, I'm going to start with the first poem. I'm going to read Rock Symphony. Rock Symphony. I offer you these ancient finger holds. Obsidian encrusts your halls. Here are maps to stars I cannot remember. Feel this space, cold, soothe your temple. Walk in liquid crystal glimmer. Feet lightly on the earth. Toes lifted. Grab tight. Drift upward, heel down. Muscular curve in this river's bed. Fit that rock beneath your foot's arch. Heel and toes ease together. Fish nibble along meridian line. Stardust tattoo inks epidermal wrinkles. Muscles grip neuronal fireworks. Reorientation to the edge. Still cool against screaming sacks, jelly red tight around your knees, this evening's bulge of inflammation, fissures gnarled long ago into crystal channel. Beam your difference to the stars. Fist gnarl, glide across bony protuberance, fatty bed, spiral. This rock lifts us up, dislocates balls of our feet, toes teeter, hollow breathes beneath. Bones try to cradle this giant pebble. This is the earth's curvature. This is the flattening of years. This is stardust. Now lift off. Toes smooth their path, a massage against the earth, force tightness against the bulge, a spread, a manta ray, mantle velvet, strata convolute against one another. Our gravity is not of this earth. Water gravity, space gravity, weightless spring. All right. Thanks for listening to that. So this is part of a collection called Pain Planet, which is a beautiful artist book that a fellow disabled artist has created recently out of my poems. And this is one of the poems in there, one of the many poems that speak to that amalgamation of pain and how the earth can soothe us and how the earth holds us. I'm now going to share with you something more about, I just kind of threw this together. Hope you're going to enjoy this. Here we go. So what I'm going to talk about today is crypt drifting, which is the video that is in the exhibit. And then we're going to look some more at rocks, so rocks is my theme here in New England. So you see here a little collection of rocks that are currently on my desk. So these are on my little desk in a composer's cottage at the McDowell residency. So every day I'm going out and I go for a little walk and I pick up a rock. And they're beautiful. As you can see, look at them. Look at the gorgeous colors. Look at the shapes. Look at the textures. I just pick up a rock every day. And I take this rock back to the studio and then I draw it. And so I drew it, I painted it, I drew it with ink, I painted it in watercolor. I have different ways of working. I'll share some more about that in a minute. And then the next day, I return each of these rocks back to the earth. So this is my ritual here. Those of you who go to artist residencies or have been to one, you probably know that it's really helpful to ground yourself with a ritual. You're kind of very dislocated in an artist residency, away from your normal life. It's useful for us humans to have rituals wherever we are. So, and in an artist residency, you really can highlight what a ritual might mean. So that's my ritual. A little bit about where I come from, and that's kind of relates to the rocks too. So origin stories are for me a form of thinking about ethical engagement, the kind of stories that we tell ourselves that we know that we grew up with. I come from Germany, a perpetrator nation, as we know. I come from the Niederrhein, and I put here one of the pictures from the Niederrhein, this foggy land between water and land. It's all land, water, and haze. It's a very, very flat countryside. It's on the edge of the Netherlands and West Germany. And there's this big river that goes through this, both the Rhine. The Rhine goes through, it's actually called the Rhineland. Niederrhein means lower Rhineland. So the Rhine goes through, but the particular river that's kind of my homeland is the Nears. And you have these farmlands that are dewatered, so you have dikes everywhere, you have these channels everywhere. So if you grow up in that area, it's all about water and fairly soggy land. And you have living creatures everywhere. So I grew up firmly knowing that every little river had a creature living in it. And I knew that creature's name. I danced with those creatures. So it's a very animate world that I come from. Ritual was all around me. I come from a small Catholic community. Catholicism is one of the minority religions of Germany. And so it was this was full-on Catholicism. It's quite different from what I associate with U.S. Catholicism. It's more like serious ritual. So every year we had a procession that would go around the village, and the altar was actually in my family garage. So we were one of the families that was holding onto all that gear that is part of Catholic ritual. So ever since I was a little one, I was very familiar with the notion of like lugging out stuff, putting out carpets over lawns and getting an altar going and putting the candles up, all that stuff. So um, pretty, it's a complicated scene as a queer woman, and how do I deal with that? It's another issue, but there is that deep, bone deep embedment in both pagan and Catholic practice. And the other part that's part of my upbringing is divinatory practices, and that's getting us closer to the rocks. So I'm sure quite a few of you here whom I'm speaking to probably have, yourself might be engaging in divinatory practices, but probably your ancestors did, maybe your grandmother. My grandmother was fortune telling us. We were doing lead. Uh, uh, I can only think of the German word now, Bleigießen. When you pour lead into cold water and then you talk about the shape that comes out, and it tells you something about the future. So my grandmother was engaging in that with us quite a lot. So there's also that the nearness of the malleability of the earth, the lead as this mineral all around us. Another strong part of my upbringing is mining industry. So I come, another name for the area where I come from is sort of adjacent to my home village area is the Ruhrgebiet, and that is the main mining area of West Germany. It's brown coal mining. It's like, as you can see there, it's similar to open top mining. And you have these giant machines. So this is like multiple stories high, this wheel that you're seeing here. And as I'm driving around my countryside, you can see that price of progress, the layering of the earth, the terraforming. And I know you have Annie Sprinkle and Beth Stevens coming up soon as a guest in Leah's gallery. So, and one of their famous films is about the terraforming in the US. So whenever they talk about that, I feel very strongly reminded of this terraforming, the mining work that happened where I'm from. So going into a mine as a child, going to mining museums is very much part of my upbringing too. So I am engaging, one of my core working methods for the last few years has been crib drifting. So crib drifting comes from the derive, psychogeography. I'm not going to throw big words at you, but psychogeography is something I think many environmental artists are very familiar with. It basically just means drifting on the land, opening yourself up to the multiple influences that surround us. And so crib drifts, I use the word crib as a in-group word for disability. So crib driftings are methods for moving through the world as a disabled artist living with pain. There's something, so I think pain is the poem that I opened up with spoke very much about pain and the curve of the earth, feeling a rock beneath one's foot and having sensations as we're touching the earth. So I think many of us who live with pain, whether we identify as disabled or not, know that there's something about a sensitivity to the world that comes as part of a painful experience. So crib drifts are methods for moving through the world as a disabled artist living with pain, touching, being with, sensing, in a world that is likewise disabled, compromised, but also thriving in complexity. So that's kind of at the heart of the practices that I'm interested in. So I'm now going to show you the video that's in the exhibit, and I'm very proud that it's in the exhibit. It's a video that we shot at the Detroit River, so by the edge of the Detroit River. And this was created during the National Women's Studies Association. So at that point, we were all reeling, of course, from the elections, everything that's going on in our country right now. So, I'm going to just go to this. I'm going to stop share on this one. And I'm going to put on the video. Okay, so this is the first of 2 videos that I'm going to share with you that are from the river. Okay, this is it. Yeah. Okay, hopefully you can all see this now. Yeah. Okay, so this is like 3 minutes long. I should have the sound on. Let me know if the sound is not coming up, but it should be okay. Enjoy. In late 2011, residents of Windsor, Ontario, began reporting a low droning vibration. It was estimated that the sound was emanating from Zouk Island, a heavily industrialized section of River Rouge on the north bank of the Detroit River. Canadian officials requested U.S. assistance in determining the source, but local authorities were stymied by official refusals to allow access to the land. A steel mill operated by U.S. Steel was the possible cause, but officials stated that no new equipment had been installed or activated around the time that the noise became noticeable. When the blast furnaces were deactivated in April 2020, the noise went away as well. Frequency. Raucous. Frequent. Crystals decipher. Shift this code. Elemental hum. All right. Okay, thank you for watching that. And I'm now going to show you a second crypt drift. So as I said, I'm at an artist residency right now. I'm at McDowell right now. So one of the things I did last week was to edit a second crypt drift by the Detroit River, one in a different season. So it's a very sunny day, but it's exactly the same spot. You'll recognize it. And so crypt drifts are community performances. So I call people together. Whoever wishes to join me joins me. So this is a different bunch of people who are joining me for another exploration. But again, it's an exploration of the influences, and I think you're probably getting a sense of that, how it works, the sense of disability, disabled land, thriving in complexity. That is what I'm trying to hold on to by combining the sound of sight with our sounds, the sounds of us moving by the river. You hear us playing with the railing. And by engaging in movement practices and meditation in public, which is really fun to do, and passers-by. It's always great to observe passers-by looking at us and wondering, what are we doing, and what kind of a cool way is this of engaging with the world we live in? Okay, I'm going to show you now the second one. It's also just a 2-minute long video. Just a minute. Great. Okay, share sound is on. Excellent. All right, so you should be able to see that now. All right, here we go. So 2 minutes, second one by the Detroit River, same location.
flowing with the watery inhabitants.
Manage not to start that at the beginning. Here we go. Let's start at the beginning.
We are hand dancing in a crypt drift by the Detroit River, flowing with the watery inhabitants. In the sun-kissed waters live phytoplanktons. In the Greek language, phyto means plant, and plankton means made to wander or drift. Join us, dear Somanaut. Join the dance of the phytoplankton in the Detroit River as we stand on Anishinaabe territory, as we witness the river's long history and the ongoing reclamation from settler industrial pollution. Cyclotella, Pleurosigma, Senedesmus, Cybella, Dinobryon, Synedra ulna, Asterionella, Anabaena, Certatella, Cyclotella, Aphanizomenon, Fragillaria, Pediastrum, Eunotia, data based on a 2021 study by Adrian A. Vasquez, Abul Ahmed, Victor D. Carmona Galindo, and Balvinder Segal.
All right. So I'm taking that one off and that one off. Okay. And stop sharing. Okay. All right. So those are two of the crypt drifts. Let's quickly check because, yay. Okay. Just seeing whether there's anything in the chat. All right. So, yeah. Let me share something else. I'm going back to my PowerPoint situation. Here we go. I'm going to just share with you one, like a bunch more images and then another 2-minute video, and then we can hopefully engage in some dialogue around this kind of work. So you've seen a little bit about what crypt drifts are. All right, so now this is the work that I'm currently engaged in. So I am writing up here. I'm doing a lot of documentation of performances. So residencies are wonderful places to create new bodies of work, but they're also really good places to reflect on what has happened. So one of the pieces I'm writing about right now is Stephanie, who's here with us. Stephanie Height and I engaged in crypt drifts in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan in the early summer or late spring of this year. We were up at the A.E. Seaman Mineral Museum, which is in Houghton, Upper Peninsula. So it's kind of like it's all the way up there, basically. It's really high up in Michigan. And it's also, again, it's mining territory. And there is this amazing mining museum. So it's a museum dedicated to mining. It is part of Michigan Technical University, which is a magnet for miners from around the world. So in these community performances that we led there at the Mineral Museum, we had miners from Zimbabwe and Nigeria with us. It was kind of amazing. A very, very international crowd for a small city high up in Michigan. And we were able to engage with crystals. We were able to engage with amazing material, copper, copper ore that the curators of the museum were sharing with us. And we're engaged in a dialogue, science art engagement, which is, I guess, what you're kind of figuring out is what's going on a lot in this presentation here, the science and art engagement. So that's one of the things I'm writing up right now. And I already began telling you at the beginning about my rock ritual. And this is what I'm doing every day. So I'm playing with invisible colors. I showed you at the beginning the rocks that I'm picking up here. And every day I'm sitting down with these rocks. And these are watercolor paintings. They are on 11 by 14 inch paper. And this is mineral paper. I don't know if anybody here has drawn with mineral paper. It's completely new to me. I love it. I took it with me to the residency. I actually took smaller ones, like 8 by 6 ones with me. And in the first week of my residency, I did all these watercolor and ink drawings of rocks. And now in the second week, I ordered myself the largest commercially available size of this mineral paper, and I'm doing these things now. So mineral paper is made out of calcium carbonate, and it's a much more sustainable source of paper than pulp, wood pulp. In comparison to newly created paper, the kind of bleached papers that we all usually know, that we know around many offices, this is so much more environmentally sustainable. In comparison to recycled paper, it's about level, it's about equal in terms of water usage and energy usage, but it doesn't require any bleach. And much of this paper, particularly the paper that I'm using for these larger ones, is actually from recycled rock. So it's a really interesting material. The very exciting thing about it is that you can throw liquids at it and it won't buckle. So it responds really differently from watercolor paper. Like I also had some Arches watercolor paper with me, and I started out working with that. And then I just got totally enamored with the qualities, the way that the rock paper engages with watercolor. And I have to apologize for the quality of the images. They're not great. I will scan them, but it was really, really rainy here today, and I didn't really feel like carrying all the drawings over to the library to scan them. But that will be what I will do eventually. So I'm sitting with these rocks, these small rocks. They're quite small. Every single one is smaller than my palm. And I just look at the colors in them. And I am just so enamored with the life force of the rocks. And I create these color pools. They're like puddles on the paper. I'm moving from close observations. On the first week, they were very closely observed, like really intense texture drawings with ink in particular, to now I have these color pools. And I love what happens on the edges. There's a really interesting toothing going on. And I'm capturing something about the way that in this case here, this is a reddish kind of rock. Obviously, hematite and other kind of iron materials are in the rock, and then creating their own story on the paper. So I have a few of those. And you're just literally my first audience because I'm literally just making those. Oh yeah, so here's another one, a picture for my desk. These are the rocks. And again, they're quite small. And so here I did some close-ups. So as I say, the actual size is 14 by 11, and I'm not sharing them here in that format. I got really close up so you can see that fascinating toothing that's going on around the edges. And so this is a rock that has a lot of green domination. There's often copper involved in that. So different kind of ores. This is mainly igneous rock area. So lots of the stuff in here has these little crystals in it. There's a lot of mica going on in there. Some of the rock is also slate. This is not. This is another one I have. I think is a slate rock. So, which are mud rocks. They're created out of sedimentary processes. So, I just love seeing what colors emerge as I look closely. That's just to me the most fun right now, because there's something about color and life that is very exciting. And I was trying today to write a proper artist statement for that to share with you tonight. I didn't really get to that because I'm still just so fascinated by it. It's all very fresh and new, but I just think that is a really, really interesting practice for me to engage in right now. And so I do create these one piece on this beautiful white expanse. And then I also have a bunch of these, which are grids. And again, 14 by 11, and you see just the extraordinary way that the paper takes the color. This is literally rock paper. And then I'm abstracting the images from the rocks further and further. So obviously the rocks don't look exactly like that, as you can imagine, but I'm pulling the colors out and working with them further and further. So they're still very much reminiscent of the original shape and color of the images, but they're it's more like an aura painting. It's a form of life force and aura painting. Great. All right, and now I'm going to end, I think. Yeah, I think we're good on time. So I'm going to share one last video poem. So obviously, you know, these videos are all very much poetic work as well. And this is another collaboration between Stephanie Height and myself. We're once again at a mining site. So we were in Leadville, Colorado. And I'm sure some people of you are familiar with Leadville. It's one of the very, very famous Superfund sites, and like a really a place that has a long history of deep industrial pollution, just like the Detroit River, really. And we were working there near the mining museum. So we were by the mining museum. We were engaging with some of the architectural remnants of the mining museum. And the place where this video is shot that I'm going to show you now is actually right next to an old mine, like an old a mining tower. You know, it's one of these fairly familiar obelisk-shaped structures that I think many of you are familiar with. So it's right next to this, and we found this beautiful tree that we danced with. And you see Stephanie's ring there, a beautiful ring that is constructed around an industrial bolt. We're talking about gold, which is one of those things that obviously created the industrial pollution that's going on in there. The city is surrounded by mining waste that is everywhere, and it sits upon the water supply. There's a lot of toxic load on this land. It's just hard land to be on. And we were also visiting the surrounding areas. There's much mining going on around there, still going on around there. Some of the biggest mining industries in the US are out there. So it's a pretty hard place to visit. So let me stop this and go to the video. So this is once again us trying to engage with these disabled lands with tenderness, moving, bringing our own histories of disability in connection with these lands and all our well-beings. We are deeply connected to the land. Okay, I think that should all be on.
Skins. A crypt rift in Leadville, Colorado. Dancing with a tree in Leadville, a 1,000-feet-high city and Superfund site surrounded by high piles of mining waste that sit upon the water supply. Gold. Coiling over the visible. Coil the rope for the bucket of silver ore. Gold. Arsenic. Gold. Upon the seeing body, your hand, cyanide. Aspen tree remediates this soil. Coiling the tangible upon the touching body. Mercury. And breathe the lead, your body, this touch. Body sees itself. Gold. Gold. Lead. dead, heavy, white. Touches itself seeing. Zinc. My body, my fingers. Touching the things. This tree, this earth, this skin, this sky. As tangible, it descends among them and fly. Trickle, sediment, gold, just fly. With quotations from Maurice Merleau-Ponty, The Visible and Invisible, 1964.
All right. All right. Thank you very much for witnessing that. I hope that was interesting, and I'd love to have a conversation with you. I'm glad to talk about any of these practices. So video poems, the poem that we began with, of course, the rock paintings, rock paper itself, and the wonderful McDowell Foundation. Thank you so much, gorgeous McDowell Foundation. So yeah, thank you so much for witnessing this. I'm glad to share this with you.
Thank you so much. So I'm losing my voice, but thank you so much. That was amazing. We have quite a few people here physically. I'll be looking at the chat if anybody has questions or thoughts. Also, you guys here with me, questions, thoughts, feel free to come up in the chair and speak face to face as well.
Never heard of mineral paper.
Right? I was the same. I hadn't heard of it either. It's been around, but I've never used it before. It was, when you get ready for a residency, you think about, well, it's time to try something new, and I wanted to have something that was fairly small so I could take it with me. Some people, of course, most of the visual artists here, people who I primarily identify as visual artists, they often drive to residencies because you have all that stuff, right? And I know many people here are visual artists, so I bet you have a lot of stuff that you have to carry around when you go to a residency. Yeah, I know, and you're nodding, exactly. So I'm a performance artist, so usually it's just me and my phone, right? This is literally it. This is usually what I carry to things. But I wanted to bring something because I do know that it's really grounding for me to have a small practice. And so I ordered the stuff, and it's fascinating. It feels like skin. I really recommend it. I began researching it a little bit. I know something about the sustainability of it. I don't know too much yet. So if anybody here knows a lot more about it, please let us know about it. And it doesn't seem very easy to get it in large sizes. So I was happy to be able to order 11 by 14 for my for the second half of my residency, because I just really wanted it bigger, like the small is very nice and intimate, but I kind of thought I'm going to push it up a little bit. But yeah, it has a wonderful feel, and it's amazing when it's just wet. I wish I could keep it in wet stage because it's like a mirror on the paper. And those of us who do visual work, you know that it's normally buckles, right? At that point, usually it buckles, or you have the strong texture of watercolor paper, whether it's hot or cold or whatever. It's usually quite relatively, it's noticeable. It's a noticeable texture. And instead, you have this smoothness like skin. Very cool. So anybody here used it before? Anybody knows about it? All right. Well, I'm very glad to introduce you.
I've used it one time.
Okay. What did you use it for?
Writing poetry, actually, but I got it from my partner. I was like, what is this made out of? And yeah. I haven't experimented with watercolor. I've just wrote poetry in it. So
Yeah. And they all are really different, I have to say. So you got to be you got to experiment. It's like when you start doing real watercolor, on watercolor paper, you have to experiment. So the different ones that I have, they all respond to color quite differently. Like the small format was taking it quite well. The large format has a lot of purling at the beginning. It actually is really interesting. And that's how I get that tooth, that when you saw that around the edges of the rock, there's this tooth stuff going on. I think it's fabulous, but they are quite different. So it's really fun to play with it. And yeah, I now also, Leah, like you, I have now a journal. Like I also ordered then a journal out of that stuff. So I think it's very nice. And the ink is beautiful on it as well. And then when you have the watercolor and the ink on, like I do ink on top of the watercolor, and then it kind of feathers in a really interesting way. Oh, good. Yeah, I know, right? So really practices. This is the life of artist residency. You can play around with practices. Thank you so much, Kasha. That's really sweet.
yes.
Questions. Does the practice of painting rocks connect into the practice of crypt drifting and poetry? Yes. So absolutely. So um, the touching the earth and connecting with that, they're so connected. I mean, it's very connected to me. So when I get to a new place, I do often collect things. I think many of us do, right? Collect things and make ourselves familiar with and see if we are welcomed by country by getting into relationship with what's here. I love finding out what the main geological things are around, like around me, like what is the main land formation. I try to figure that out. I think being German helps with that because it's a very German inquiry. It's like a lot of these early geologists, as part of this paper that I told you I'm working on, I've been like reading all this stuff. Goethe, Johann Wolfgang Goethe, the poet, Johann Wolfgang Goethe. So he's a poet, right? Very well known as a poet. He is also one of the first geologists. Like literally, he was there at the beginning of the birth of geology as a practice. Like all poets, he had to have a day job, right? No one gets rich being a poet. So he worked for one of these Grafs, the little the counts of Germany, hired Goethe to run his mining museum. So Goethe was one of the first people who put lots and lots and lots of rocks together and started thinking about them. He went disastrously wrong. He developed a theory of the birth of the world that's called Neptunism, that we all are, that the rocks, that the earth is born out of water. And there was this whole big discussion in Germany and around the world about Neptunism, like Neptune, water, versus volcanism, Vulcan. I can tell you the volcanists are right, so Goethe was wrong. And then the volcanists are people like Alexander von Humboldt. You've probably heard that name before, right? It's another famous name in the history of geology. I mean, who knows about the history of geology? I don't know why I think you know that, but anyway, so this is like a famous natural scientist who then developed this notion of volcanism, that most rocks are developed from heat, not from water. Like sedimentary versus igneous, but also like that all rock, including granite and stuff, is like coming out of water, which is of course not true. They come out of magma. Like when magma cools, you have these little crystals that form inside rocks, and that's how granite creates this incredibly interesting structure. In granite, you have these multiple things next to one another. If you look at a granite rock, it has all this, it's not one kind, it's heterogeneous. So I love like thinking about these kinds of things. And Stephanie, actually, Stephanie and I, we had a residency. I'm on sabbatical, that's why I'm having all these residencies. We went to Tofty Lake, which is in the Boundary Waters up in Minnesota, like really high up. Is where the wolves are. If you've seen pictures of that area, that's where. Yeah, thank you. Mary's just put up something about Humboldt. So the Boundary Waters in that particular place is where the wolf. We saw a wolf in the wild. How cool is that, right? So, and that area was all mudstone. So it has slates. It had all these slates, and Those of you who live in a slate area, you know that there's the most amazing colors in slate, like slate stone,
Great.
blues and greens and everything. So at that time, I was using rubbing. I was rubbing slate and then using watercolor on top of that, which is also really fun. Charcoal and then watercolor mixing with charcoal. All right, so that was one question. Do you see any direct lines from your heritage of Catholicism to your current crypt drifting or videos? Yeah, I think ritual in public is my answer to that. Ritual in public and just blessing the land and being blessed by the land. I think that's at the heart of a lot of Catholic ritual. I think more as I associated with, maybe more familiar to many of you might be Latin American Catholicism, when you have like processions and stuff. I'm not very familiar with Catholicism in the US, but I've never seen this here. I don't know, right? In predominantly Anglo US, I don't think has a heck of a lot of processions going on, but it would be really normal. Like in my village, you would bless the fields, you would bless the land. There would be this very strong relationship of engaging in ritual practice on the land, which I think is, psychogeography, really.
Oh,
Yeah.
that was like one of my other questions, because you talked about when you're doing the performance in public and how you allow people to just be welcomed or invited in to participate. And I was really curious, do you have like information you have somewhere for the general public where your performance takes place, or is it really just they come and then discover?
Yeah, so if we have a bigger show, if it's like these are just like what you just saw, like 5, 6 people at a time. But if it's a bigger thing, we usually have a greeter as part of the scene. So it's someone that is volunteers to be the greeter. It might be me, it might be someone else. So there's a score, it's a score-based practice. There's a score we're engaging in. And it's very open to people. So if people might be walking by and then someone tells them, oh, this is, they look curious. Most people are curious. What's going on here? And then we tell them what it's about. And quite often people join us. It's not unknown to have some people joining us or to do adjacent practices. If you engage in art in public, people will engage in art in public. They're doing their own stuff. Then there's just the weirdness is infectious, and that's what we need in this world,
Okay,
right?
yeah.
We need creativity and weirdness in the world. So I think that's a important response to the current political moment, to just invite people in, let them be weird, whatever they want to do. It's Stephanie, who's here, might remember with me the moment when the flamingo joined us. So we had a crypt drift by the Huron River, which is, our homeland. And anyway, at one point, a pink flamingo that was blown up by a bunch of people who were like a little bit away from us, became part of the scene. And somehow that was great. We just had one of these giant inflatable pink flamingos that suddenly showed up in the crypt drift. Fabulous.
Oh my gosh, that's great. That is fantastic.
It was
Do
fantastic.
any of you want to come up and ask questions, or like here?
And Kasha's last point, yeah, mineral-based watercolors. Yes, most watercolors are anyway. Yes, I do have some mineral-based stuff, and I also have the Beam. Some of you might be using Beam, indigenous, an indigenous-owned company that makes absolutely fabulous watercolors. So that's not what I have with me here, but I do use that stuff too. Hi there. Hi, Georgia.
Hi. Oh, hi there. I have a question about what inspired you to take poetry and the performance art of dance and movement expression and put it together. Are there any influences you have that you can share?
Oh,
That's
yeah.
something I'm interested in.
Oh, I'm so glad. That's wonderful. I think it's a wonderful way of working. To me, I am disabled. I live with pain. I live with chronic pain. I'm doing quite well right now, but often I can
Great.
quite crypt up. I think the sabbatical really helps with not being too crypt up. But yeah, anyway, usually I experience a lot of pain in my life. And that means sometimes that I can't move, that I'm not moving. So language is for me a beautiful way of holding on to the sensations of moving. So I run a weekly session called Starship Somatics, where we go deep into the earth, but also high up to the stars. We often fly with, with magma, with lava. We hang out with worms in the earth, all that kind of stuff. It's a practice that I do through Movement Research, which is a New York-based contemporary dance outfit, and I started the practice when the pandemic began, when the COVID pandemic began, and we were all in lockdown, couldn't be with one another, couldn't dance. So people can join this. This is every Tuesday at 11 o'clock Eastern time. It's for free. And people join us in all kinds of ways. And in there, I'm using language-based scores. Like there are like poems in order to invite you into movement. And the movement can be internal. You might just be lying on your sofa and not moving a muscle, but inside you're going on a beautiful dream journey. Or you might be dancing externally and just might be spinning around your living room, whatever. So to me, there's a really interesting relationship between how language can activate states in the body, how language can activate our imagination. I hope some of you were feeling that pebble under your foot when I was reading the poem at the beginning, or the touch of the bark in the video poems that I shared. So there are strong influences there. There's many different people I could mention. Simone Forti is somebody like that, someone who's a West Coast a dance artist who also engages in language practices. Many people who are sort of part of the postmodern dance scene have used language and writing and movement together. And I think it's very rich and exciting to do that. That was a lovely question. Do you write yourself? Are you a poet?
Do what? What were you?
Your name.
Oh, hi, I'm Casey. I'm really bad at introducing myself.
Oh, Casey, that's lovely. Are you a poet yourself? Do you write?
Yes, I do. And I also dance, and I like to put them together. And so I haven't found a lot of like inspiration for that, like other than what's in my own head. And so I loved watching that today. And then that's why I'd asked like about other influences, because I want to learn more.
I'm going to put some names in here, so you can't see that. It doesn't help
save
you.
the chat.
Okay.
Simone Forti and actually I'm going to mention Stephanie Hyde, who is here with us. She and my mom-in-law. So Stephanie is also a dancer and a poet. And Stephanie comes to this on a slightly different way. Stephanie is someone who's a mental health activist, and her work is also very much about the relationship between dancing and writing. So I'm putting her name in here, very easily Googleable. So that's
cool.
2 others.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Oh, Aaron, you want to come sit over here? You want to come over here?
I'll go.
We have a few questions on this end, and then we'll wrap it up.
Beautiful. No, it's great. Thank you.
Hi, Petra. I'm Tom. I've loved everything I've seen.
Thank you, Tom.
The piece about the rocks, I apologize for not remembering the title, but it resonates with me. I'm a biologist, and as part of, I'm not much of an art person. I know what I like, but as a biologist, I recognize how we're all the same. And by we, I don't mean people. I mean people and animals and plants and rocks and everything. We're all made of the same stuff.
That's right.
Limestone is calcium carbonate. We've got calcium and we've got carbon and we've got oxygen in us and other stuff, right? We're all connected. So my question is, considering that everything we encounter, we're all made of the same stuff, what are your thoughts about the connection and what that means?
Lovely. I think that's great. What you're saying is wonderful. And that is what the connection is between so many science practices and art practices. So I know what I'm doing when I'm calling Goethe and Alexander von Humboldt into the room, right? There's so many scientists who are dealing with exactly what you're talking about as well. By the way, it was fabulous to work with the curators at the Mineral Museum. They don't normally work with artists. They were quite suspicious, actually. They were like, at the beginning, very beginning, they were like, why does this performance artist want to come and work with some rocks? Don't get it. So like a little bit suspicious. And then they were the kindest people, and they schlepped all these massive rocks out of the archives in order for us to touch it. At one point, they gave us this giant aquamarine, which I think it cost like $30,000 or something. It was massive, a beautiful crystal. And we got to hold that during the community performances. It's like unbelievable, so nice. They were friendly as hell, telling us all about their practices. So the head curator, for instance, he works on graphite, carbon, right? So we had that whole conversation about how every atom, everything we are, we breathe, trees, like every single atom in me is made up out of trees. I wouldn't be able to live without them. We know that about plants, the plants. We know that every single skin cell is made up out of minerals. There's this and one of the meditations we do in Starship Somatics is to go down and become oil, that connection between organic materials falling into a shallow sea, being covered up, then earth pressure and heat, transformation of organic materials into oil and gas, then that coming back out of the earth again, being made into plastics, but the deep connection between the organic and the inorganic, that's also at the heart of my interest with stones. As I say, the life force of stones, there's something about that permeability of organic and inorganic that I find really exciting. Thank you so much.
That is fascinating, and I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And Catherine has a question. Yeah, critical new materialism. Exactly. Karen Barat, excellent. Yes. There's those matter and entanglements. The write-up that I'm doing of the Mineral Museum has these kinds of names in it. It's all like new materialism all over the place. And I'm still kind of figuring out whether I want to write more like a critical piece, where I'm doing a lot of citations of new materialist, feminist thinkers, whether this is going to be more creative nonfiction, what the genre is. I'm intrigued by that. I don't know. I'm not know yet. I'm kind of working with that. But yes, it's also really interesting when I started working on new materialism and the crystals, and this might be like a tiny little footnote for some of you, but the original new materialists, like Delanda, that was the guy who called the field new materialism. Rosie Braidotti and Delanda were the two people, feminist and Delanda were two people who named the field. And he has a really interesting, he's really down on crystals. It was really fun to track this down. He thinks that crystals are just really too orderly and boring. So I have this whole interesting quote about how he's thinking about crystals and the grids of crystals as being just way too uninteresting. And then I had to find all other kinds of feminist new materialist thinkers who see a lot more scope for disobedience in crystal grids. Very fun. Anyway, so I hope that was addressing that question a lot. So entanglement is certainly a wonderful way of talking about that. Thanks, Mary. All right.
Yes, we'll take one more question and then we can close out. Thank you.
Mary, I love that. Silica is a very random molecule. Exactly, it's extremely random. And it's very interesting. I have been looking at that curator I mentioned. So the contribution that he made to the community performance for our Crypt Drift, he talked about he was at a friend's class, another scientist, and they looked at a graphite molecule, a piece of graphite through an what's the word? I can't remember now. Damn. Like a microscope that uses electrons, right? So electromagnometer, I believe. Anyway, so he was talking about how he was looking at the lattice of the crystal in ever smaller ways, and how connected that was to the meditation that we had just done together. It was a very similar way of experiencing it, one visually and one in this very somatic way, as we're getting smaller and smaller, and as we're surrounded by the crystal lattice. It's very fun. Georgia.
Can I jump in real quick?
Yeah.
Of course.
Petra, first of all, thank you so much for doing this. It's Thursday night, and we get to have this really dope presentation by you. And I'm very humbled to be able to partake in it. And thank you for taking my question. One of the first things I'd like to say is when you started your second video, you started a little bit ahead and you had the hands up. And there was something almost intimidating by the intimacy of the hands just sitting there on the screen that I thought was really intriguing. And then you rewound it to sort of the void of the water. And so that contrast between the void and the specificity of the hands was just fascinating. And I'm really honored by the breadth of the work that you presented, from the painting to the writing to the dance. So thank you for that. And my question centers around a statement that you made a couple of times, which was the price of progress. And then, and of course, you're doing it out of a keen observation and care and love for the earth that we get to be a part of. But I was kind of curious about the price of progress for you as an artist, emotionally and spiritually. What, because you're giving yourself so much, and you mentioned the pain of disability, and you mentioned spirituality with Catholicism, and so there was a lot going on there, and I was just intrigued about the price of progress for you as an artist, emotionally and spiritually.
I love that. What a beautiful question. Thank you so much. And I think that's probably a question that resonates with many of our WEAD colleagues here as well. That seems very central to the exhibit that we have up there, Leah's gorgeous exhibit there. So, God, what a question. It's really, really excellent. The price of progress. So I think that's also so much at the heart of that crypt drifting. So it's partly about us being disabled, but there's also this sense that the world is in what am I going to say here? That we need to meet the world where the world is at right now. We're not going to undo ourselves back prior to the Industrial Revolution. We're not going to be able to undo some of the forever chemicals that are swimming around our Michigan lakes. We're not going to undo that. It's not really quite where we're at. Instead, we need to find a way to live well within that and really support practices that might be engaged in remediation. So a lot of artists use mushrooms, use other kinds of practices to detoxify and remediate soil. So to me, engaging in these quasi-spiritual somatic ways is also a way of detoxifying, of getting closer. The people who are with me by the side of that Detroit River have a different relationship to the river now than they had before. Like engaging people, getting people to be engaged in land close up with careful attention, not just saying, oh, this is toxic, forget about it, but instead being closely in with what is there creates a new relationship to the river. And you might know that while there's still a lot of toxic load in the Detroit River, at the same time, we have amazing remediation going on there. So we have sturgeon releases. The sturgeon has returned to the Detroit River, which is extraordinary. Yeah. Indigenous sturgeon releases, which we've been able to participate in. So there's a lot of hope going on. There's a lot of ways in which our energy of attention is its own detoxification. It allows us to be in relation to land that some people have written off, but that will come back to a thriving life. Yeah, thank you for the beautiful question.
Thank you, Petra.
Yay, thank you. What a lovely bunch of people.
Thank you
so much.
Thank you for coming.
Thanks for
Sharing us.
Thanks, everybody. Lovely to see you all.
For everyone that joined virtually, thank you so much. And Petra, thank you. If you don't know more about her work, please check it out for sure, because amazing work happening, and enjoy your residency.
Oh my God, I do.
Thank you for taking time out of your pleasurable residency to do a talk.
Oh my God, it's so good. No,
That
it was wonderful.
We will be recording this. So if you go under exhibitions, we'll have a recording and share it with your friends.
Yeah, we can go back to it. We'll save the chat too, so any thoughts or comments or links will be shared. So thank you.
Thanks so much,
Thank
everybody.
you very much. So very nice to meet everybody in the gallery, and I hope the next conversation is wonderful.
Ciao, ciao.
Ciao, ciao.
Thank you.